Hello, everyone, and welcome to a Game Sandwich interview. We are sitting down with Ben Kvalo with Midwest Games to talk about Midwest and everything they've got going on the publishing side of that. Ben, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Cool, man. I'll edit that together. I'm admiring your office. I'm admiring the logo. I was going to ask about the logo, but it's just MWIC. So,
Yes, it is MW. It's simple, but what it's meant to like allude to. One, you can see like the part of the secondary logo or well, I guess tertiary logo
mhm.
is flag, like putting our flag in the ground. But then the squiggle is meant to kind of look like treetops, some trees and forests of especially Wisconsin, the Midwest, and yeah, it has. And then also, if you look at our logo, when it's like this, it has like a lake effect to it with the M and W. And so it's with the 20,000 lakes in Wisconsin and so many lakes throughout the Midwest, and the Great Lakes and everything like that. So there's a couple little small little Easter
Little
eggs.
nods. I love when companies do that. It's really great.
Yeah, it all came together like very last minute. But we got it just in time for the IGN announcement. It was we
Oh
were
yeah, that's right.
we were cutting it close last August.
Well, man, you've made it to another. Pretty much, basically, August is 2 or 3 months away.
Oh my God. Yeah.
You've been doing so much for the Midwest area. I mean, is Midwest Games one of the biggest out there? I mean, I know they've got ZeniMax and all that, but what's
Yeah, I mean,
Midwest?
we're the only one. We're one of two in region now. We were the first one in region to
Mm,
release or to publish a title. But then Big Mode just did as well. So Big Mode's also located in Wisconsin, in Madison.
mm,
And that's Video Game Donkey. And they put out Animal Well
yeah.
from a developer in Illinois, a single developer in Illinois. And so very two Midwest folks. But yeah, we're the largest operation of publishers.
Hmm.
But then in Madison, there's a large congregation of video game developers, and really like a lot focused around live service games, like some of the biggest, most successful live service games in the world have one of their main studios in Madison, Wisconsin. So you have Raven that's working in all the Call of Duty online and development and support. You have a new Respawn studio working on Apex Legends, that's going to go from like 25 people and to like I think 125 people this year or something.
Yeah. Wow.
So they're growing dramatically. PUBG, one of their main offices, their global creative director is based in Madison, Dave Kurd,
Mm.
which is the perfect name for a Wisconsinite. Um, and then you have what was formerly Roundhouse under Bethesda
Hmm.
has now joined ZeniMax Online, um, and so that's there. Then you have Lost Boys, which works on Diablo
Hmm.
and WWE and New World and Tiny Tina's Wonderlands and more. And they're in an interesting position where they were under Gearbox. They were acquired by Gearbox,
Hmm.
but then with the sale of Gearbox, they're staying with Embracer, but like up leveling what they're doing as a studio. So we'll see what becomes of that.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
then you also
yeah.
Purple, which works on Disney's biggest mobile game,
Mm.
Disney Hero. So, or and so yeah, it's wild to see all of those things happening right in Madison, because you expect it more so in Chicago, but
Yeah.
Chicago doesn't really have it. Minneapolis doesn't really have it. They have more press up there, but even then, like Game Informer's like half of the people that were there in Minnesota to work at Game Informer are no longer, like they work remotely elsewhere. So yeah.
Yeah. I totally forgot Game Informer was out that way, and I know a few of them went on to MinMax, and they're still out in Minnesota areas. So
Yep. Yep.
I always love
Yep.
seeing people branch off from larger things to break down and do what they want to do because a lot of there's a lot more freedom and having your own company, being able to do and say, exactly what you want to cover, which is what I love to do at Game Sandwich. You know, indie game, AAA, we're never gonna compete with the big people, IGN or anything like that. But I love covering the smaller games that people don't talk about. All these indie titles that are coming out. So that's why I wanted to reach out to you because you've done a lot. You've released six games so far. I think I've researched.
Well, we've announced six so
Yep.
far. We've released two
Yes.
uh, Hive Jump 2 Survivors.
Mm-hmm.
We're really, really, really excited about and hoping to garner some really solid attention around that one. That's a studio in St. Louis.
Yep.
Um, and so we're trying to support them. We came onto the project, pretty late, but we just see the potential and we love the team. And so we're trying to scramble to get everything, ready to go with that. And then, yeah, we announced three other ones as well. One of them being in Wisconsin. Another one is in New Mexico. And then another one that what was the other one we announced? I'm trying to remember.
uh, yeah.
Yeah, which
Lullaby of
one?
Life, Duck Paradox, Hive Jump 2
Yeah, those.
Survivors,
Oh,
and then Raw Raw
and then
Boom is coming out.
oh yeah, Ra Boom is Cincinnati, Ohio as well. Um, so yeah, so there's a lot still coming. End of this year, beginning of next year. And then we have a couple games we haven't announced as
Mm-hmm.
well. And so, a bunch are from the Midwest. Some are not are from outside the Midwest. We're signing games from all over the world at this point. And so, really trying to, but I think you see the theme. It's all underserved places. So
Mm-hmm.
even when it's like, another studio like New Mexico is. It's not like New Mexico is known as this place.
Mm-hmm.
Mexico, doesn't get the support it needs, all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, I think there's just so much opportunity, so much talent in these places, and we just need to better support them in the go to market. And we're ramping up fast. All this usually takes a lot of time because you want to like give, especially on Steam, it's such an algorithm based platform. You want to give it the proper ramp up, and we don't really have that time right now. So we're trying to get to it, but there's many other ways we can support a title and give it at least a chance in market. You just never know when it gets there.
Yeah, because Midwest Games is way more than a publisher. I went to your website earlier. PR, marketing, you do everything basically
Yeah.
to try to push people's games out there. So where did really that idea come from to be like, hey, we want to start this publishing PR company to support game makers?
Yeah, the idea came from, this thing that's been in the back of my head for a long time. Why is games not bigger in the Midwest? And then I saw the gap, all too clearly while I was still at Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw, post COVID, part of the reason the gap existed pre-COVID was there was a forcing function that moved everybody to these these existing hubs,
Mm-hmm.
to the point that in ESA's last study of like the gaming industry and where it was located, 67% was in three states, essentially four cities or regions, like the Seattle area, San Francisco area, LA/San Diego area, and Orange County, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
and then the Austin area. It was really just that, and that hasn't always been the case. Chicago was a huge hub for a long time because of Midway,
Mm-hmm.
with Mortal Kombat and NBA Jam, NFL Blitz, Cruising USA, and tons of others. And uh, they crashed almost exactly 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's June of 2009 is when they went bankrupt.
Yeah.
I'll relook at it, but it's something like that. And so when that crashed, there just wasn't much. That was the tent pole, and once that crashed, everything else kind of crashed. And so, what I saw was an opportunity as we were coming out of COVID. The migration patterns had shown that people moved. 2021, 2022, if you look at the movement and the trends that were happening, so many people moved outside of the existing hubs. And so my bet, and some of it is like evidence that I saw firsthand, but from a volume standpoint, my bet is that they either moved to where they were from originally,
Mhm.
or they moved to a place that was more affordable. And the Midwest has both of those things. A lot of people I've worked with in the industry are from the Midwest. And Midwest is the most affordable place of any of the regions. And so, with that combined with like what I said about the amount of things happening in Wisconsin and others, I said, well, there's a great opportunity, except there's a missing piece of the ecosystem. If you think about holistically of like what makes games go and all the pieces that kind of go into it, I was like, hey, there's the big, you know, uh, developers that, they have a lot of developers in them. You're basically a cog in a wheel working on a really awesome big franchise. And that's awesome for a lot of people, right? Really great experience, really great way to get into the industry to work on something maybe you really love. But a lot of developers eventually want to go create their own thing. And if they don't have somebody to go to in that moment, they might not pay, or when they do, their chances of success are dramatically lower than anything else, because you look at Steam with 14,000 games coming out every year. 98% of games are self-published,
Mhm.
and they only generate about 25% of revenue. So 2%, which is the publishers, generate about 75% of revenue. So like it's just an unfair advantage to have a publisher, and our region doesn't have a publisher. And so I saw an opportunity to do that and then provide holistic coverage as a publisher. Certain publishers will only focus on certain like things that is their core competency. But I'm like, if we're going to serve properly, we need a financing branch, we need marketing, community, PR, press. Being able to really work directly with press and have those relationships. But then you also need all of these services that help you go to market and thrive in market, which are, you know, proper QA, because making sure you don't have bugs, like especially on a platform like Steam, you can return the game within 2 hours of gameplay
Mhm.
if there's like major bugs and things like that. And so getting a well tested game through QA is so vital. Localization, production support, release management, managing multiple storefronts, and even going to multiple storefronts, even just on PC, is really difficult. And so knowing how those all work, knowing the people at these places, and being able to get something just even launched smoothly is difficult. And so taking that weight off of the developer and moving into us. So providing all of those things really helps a game succeed. And that's ultimately where I said, if we can do that, we can start to build a piece of the ecosystem that will help the overall ecosystem thrive.
Yeah, and it's a fantastic thing that you're doing. I mean, already these six announced games. I think five, 4 or 5 of them are out. Raw Raw Boom is coming sometime, and I know Raw Raw
Mhm.
Boom has a following already.
Yes.
I'm a big fan of the trailers and everything I've seen so far, so I'd love to get my hands on that to cover it for us at Game Sandwich. But
Yeah.
until then, when you were at Netflix, and it was the last place you worked before starting Midwest, was there one specific scenario where you thought, I need to do this? Like, do you remember the day or a specific time you were doing something at your desk?
Yeah, I mean, it was the end of like 2022. We were at a point where I had been there from almost the very, very beginning, but like I would say like, in the scheme of things, like day two, basically.
Mm.
And And so I'd come over from the films unit where I was the first hire in the marketing operations team for film. And so had helped to build that, did that for 3 years, led all the tentpole film campaigns, got to experience everything and learn, film. And then to go into games or return to games really after being at 2K and Blizzard was, an incredible opportunity and to also do it in a new way, subscription and and just having come off of the films where when we started that initiative, everyone was like, well, like real films don't go and like don't get streamed day one, like those they go to theaters, and everyone was like, theaters, you have to go to theaters. And in the 3 year span that we were there, we really changed that narrative of like, oh well, games have to go to theaters, to oh no, great great films can be shown in any different way, and some people like to see it in theaters and some people like to see it on their phone, and let the consumer decide how they want to view something, and be able to bring big blockbuster films day one to streaming. And so looking at like Netflix games, we had this interesting opportunity to be like, okay, well, people are used to like free to play type of experiences on mobile, which are, some people love those experiences and whatnot. But I just believe that when you deliver a full high quality game, whether it be casual to hardcore, like that piece is, doesn't matter as much, but a high quality game, they're going to choose that. And if you can do that in a subscription service, I think they're going to choose that over time. And that's the perception that Netflix games has to really change. And so we had built it. We had built I was the lead on launching the product. We launched it. We built the infrastructure to launch games. And I was just like, I was starting to build out and be part of the build out of the publisher there. And I'm like, listen, I keep building all these things for other people and doing all this stuff. And at the end of the day, whenever you work in corporate, at some point that gets taken away from you. You might have full like control or full authority to go build something, go make it great. But at some point they go, okay, well, now you're a cog in a wheel and go do this, do whatever, we tell you to do next. And I was like, okay, well, this seems like the right moment post COVID. The gap I saw of like, why not go and try that? Like, why not go try something? And I sold myself with it by saying, hey, at the end of the day, I'm going to at least learn something. Even if I fail massively, I'm going to learn something.
We learn best by failure too. So, but I would say you're succeeding so far. You just had what, your year 2 weeks ago, I think it was.
Yep.
Saw your post on LinkedIn. So, were there any times when you did quote unquote fail and learn from it, or has it just been a roller coaster ride of ups and ups and no downs yet?
Oh no, there's always ups and downs. Those are just the things that you don't see as much. I try to share a little bit of it on LinkedIn. You can only share so much of it, because some of it is highly sensitive, especially when you about investments and things like that. And getting like investments is such a roller coaster. The ups and downs of getting investment in a company is just like absurd. I was at my lowest of low points at certain points where we're coming up on like what seems like the end of the runway. Like, am I going to have any money in my pocket left? Like, and you start to panic in that. And the reality is, like, I was like, hey, I can only control what I can control, and I might be screwed, but I'm still gonna like keep going. And it got figured out. Like it eventually like figured out, but it was a roller coaster. And it's always with any good that comes, there's always something that pulls you down a little bit, gets you off your high horse. And so what I try to do is just balance it. Not get too high in the high moments, not get too low in the low moments, because there always is that. There's always something that's going to be a gut punch, and then there's going to be something that's an opportunity that comes off of it. And sometimes the things that don't work out end up being great because it actually opens up a door into something else that you hadn't considered, or a better opportunity, or a better partner, or whatever it is. And but no matter what, you feel it just to your core as a founder, because it means so much to you, because it's like it's your baby, right?
Yep.
Like this thing didn't exist a year and 2 weeks ago. And so it's definitely a roller coaster, up and down. I try to share some of it on LinkedIn, but it's hard to share it all.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to share all aspects of business
Yeah.
life. There are some things not meant for people to see and know about. I mean, um,
And personal life. I think that's the thing that people don't talk enough as a founder is your partner, your family, your friends. There are massive sacrifices that come with that, and you have to be willing to take those, or you're gonna fail at one of the things. Like you're gonna if you have to set expectations, you have to like you have to take time also away from work and make sure that you focus on some of the relationships. It's really tough on that end of things.
yeah. So, speaking of family and friends, if you don't mind, I'm sure you've had them, have your back throughout this. Is there some people in your life that you just, listened to and they said something and you were like, I don't know, I should do that, but you ended up doing it, or vice versa?
Yeah, I mean, uh, I've been fortunate to have a lot of support. That doesn't make it any less challenging at certain times, but the support is always there. Um, yeah, I mean, I've been fortunate that through this journey, I've met some people that have become close friends
Mm-hmm.
that have just provided some of the most important counsel at key times. And you just never know who those people are going to be. One of them ended up like putting together like a founders group, and it really just became a counseling group for us all to like complain about certain things with the whole process and whatnot, and where we each were. And
Mm-hmm.
we were all raising at the same time, and that just was really important and powerful, because you felt like you weren't alone. It becomes a very lonely process when you're a founder.
Yeah. And are you the sole founder, or would you say there is a co-founder as well? Or I know I was looking at your website earlier. You're a very small team, 8 or 9 people, plus some other
Yep.
people helping out on the back end.
Yeah, I'm the sole co-founder at this point. We had some folks start out with us as well, but it ended up being like making most sense for me to take it forward. And then roles have like kind of shifted around, whether it be advisors or other things. You kind of feel it out, especially in the beginning of like you don't know how kind of all the dynamics are going to work together, and then you kind of work through them. But it all worked out well for us, and I think we were able to get through all of those times and get to where we want to go next.
Yeah. And that's actually leads to my next question. When you started your career, however many, 2010 year ago, Ben, to now, Ben, what
Yeah.
would, that first starting out career, wherever you were at, tell the now you?
Well, I mean, the then me would, yeah, like this is like a pipe dream um to be in this. I came out, so I graduated in 2010 uh with a the degree in business administration, emphasis in management, minor communications. Um, and it was a recession. There was no jobs at all. The only job I could get, I was 3 months unemployed, and then I got a job in selling radio, selling air,
Okay.
literally. And I think I know I made $12,000 a year. doing that. I only did it for 3 months, so three months, and $3,000,
Right. Yeah.
which is well below minimum wage, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but they can get away with it because sales, right? Commission based
Commission. Yep.
bullshit.
Yep.
Um, and it was awful. And so thinking back to that, I remember when I was interviewing for 2K, I was at a different radio gig after that, and I was trying to get into games. And I said to my who ended up becoming my boss, "Hey, I want to be a CEO someday." And how naively I said that. And now to like be in that kind of shoes, it's just it's funny because you go through, hey, that's what I want to be. You have all this confidence coming out of college. You think you know it all, and the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know anything, and that it feels like you know less over time, even though you actually know more, and you're becoming more. Like it's just you become more aware of the things around you that you don't know that you want to learn, and then you learn those things. And so I said that to her, and so it's just funny to have that happen. And now she's the COO of EA, and so it's funny, a mentor like that really helps me. She was so instrumental to kind of helping me build the building blocks of my career into games.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about. We talked about this before. It's all about the people and people build people, and it's funny, looking back on your career, who back then, where they are now, and how you've helped each other kind of grow and mentor, and it's probably beneficial to have someone that works at EA.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to be able to. I was fortunate in my 2K days to get a lot of exposure to executives and executive function, and how I did it. I was telling this story the other day, and how I did it really was around, I became the presentation master. I became the best person in the company at making presentations for the executive group. And so then they wanted me to do all of them. And so that meant I did the board of directors presentations, and I did, the big sales meetings in random places around the world. I did, all of that stuff. And that gave me exposure. It helped me build trust with the executives. And then they gave me more responsibilities outside of presentations. So really, I focused in on that one thing first, because that was the opportunity I was given, and then was able to leverage that into, really learning, building my career, but really getting so much exposure. And that's the fortunate thing that I have. And the fact that I can go to somebody like that and just say, what do you think about this? And I know that they understand it, because they are going through it at a massive scale compared to me. And I can ask advice, just generally, and I know that I'm going to get some really interesting tidbits of wisdom, which I think just also helps. It's that network that you gain over time, that you just know you go to somebody for something and actually get some really solid advice that might be the difference between success and failure.
Yeah, exactly. Networking is an overlooked part of games development and anything related to, film, television, radio, you name it. Networking is one of those things that if you're good at it, you're good at it, and you want to learn it, take the time, read some books, talk to people to learn how to do it. Networking is how I found you. It's I talked with another developer last week, and she actually said she talked to you at GameSpeed. So I was like, I'm talking to Ben in a couple of days. So it's all
it's funny. It's funny how all that works, right? Well, yeah, and she had said something to me at GameSpeed as well, and yeah, it's all about that networking, because it creates influence, to the point that at GamesBeat last week, I ran a roundtable, and there was supposed to be 10 people, because I'm facilitating, a roundtable, and it ended up being 50 plus people at this roundtable, and which is impossible to facilitate a conversation. But we tried our best. But it was so many people that were, either directly like connected to me or had been influenced through something or had like seen something I posted. And that just it shows the difference. And what I loved about it is all those people then came together. They met one another. They started to connect with one another. To the point that in my network, there's a lot of folks that have very large LinkedIn followings. And it just happens that somebody I used to work with at Netflix that came to that panel happens to work at LinkedIn,
Mm.
running a lot of the prominent functions of LinkedIn. And so then they were able to meet one another randomly via this like connection that we had, which I think provides, for them, LinkedIn should love it because
Mm.
they're getting direct feedback from some of their, core folks that they might not have in other situations. And what I love about it is these are all games folks. So it helps influence that platform in a game direction of like, well, this specific network of people that are in the games industry, how can we better facilitate conversation and connection on a platform like LinkedIn?
Yeah, and I think LinkedIn it's so different than what it used to be. It used to be this place for
Mhm.
jobs, go find a job, reach out to recruiters and all that. And now it's basically social media. And
Yep.
you post
Yep.
something, you get likes, you get comments, and it just kind of domino effects from there.
Except social media that you have to put your face and name in front of,
Yeah.
which I appreciate, which some people, still don't. It doesn't make a difference, um, but it makes you think and act, in a way that you want to be seen as.
Yep.
And so I think it helps people's interaction. And even when they make a mistake, what I've seen on the platform is those folks really do aim to improve. And I've actually built some like really incredible relationships with people that initially came off as frankly kind of like assholes. And but then, who knows like what's going on in their lives, or there's so much. But you're able to, uh, they take things way more seriously than somebody that just throws out a tweet and
Yeah.
ignore and can say what they want and you know, you don't know if there's a human behind it or a bot. So
Yeah. Again, LinkedIn's one of my favorite social media platforms to use. It feels so strange calling it a social media platform, but it really is. Um,
it is. It is.
would you say it's helped Midwest Games become what it is?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely from an industry standpoint. From a consumer standpoint, I think we still have a long way to go.
Mhm.
Um, but from a build, like one of the biggest challenges with building a business is building legitimacy in the eyes of at least the industry. Consumers, you need to like marketing works on that over time. But in the eyes of the industry, like that you are authentic, that you are actually doing something that matters to the industry as a whole. There always will be individual opinions, but
Mhm.
does the overall like see the value in what you're doing? And LinkedIn definitely helped us build our legitimacy of, yeah, like we're not only a real thing, but what we're doing can make a difference. And I think that's the thing. And with where the industry's at or has gone in the last year, because it was very different a year ago when I left Netflix. Like it wasn't this dire situation. But part of the reason I left was because I saw that the industry needed change and needed to think about things sustainably in other places. And now suddenly we're in that place. And so our message, we were ahead of the wave of this. And so our message really resonates because we were ahead and saying those things before anyone else was really saying them. And so that's really what it's brought us is that legitimacy that you really crave when you're an early
Mhm.
startup.
Yeah, and definitely, again, you've been a year and 2 weeks, and I think you've done some incredible things. You've got some incredible things on the back end that you can't talk about yet. I mean,
Yes.
you're a busy dude, man. You're all over the place. You're at GamesBeat. out in California, now you're back in the Midwest for the next few months. What's next on your agenda? What are you looking forward to in the future for not only Midwest but in gaming in general?
Yeah, I mean, well, we put out a game on Wednesday, Hive Jump 2 Survivors, which we're really, really excited about. I like to say it's like Vampire Survivors meets Helldivers,
Yeah.
or imagine a Vampire Survivors where you're like the Master Chief from Halo fighting the Flood. Like that's essentially, what it is, except it has, the team in St. Louis that made this Graphite Lab. They put a lot of care into really thinking through, well, how do you take this genre, or whatever genre you want to call it, because like there's a lot of different names for it right now. And how do you take it the next step forward? And I think they've put some things in this game that are really interesting to see. So that's coming up. We're hosting a Wisconsin Games Alliance event in Green Bay for the first time. And so,
Hmm.
we have well over 100 game developers coming to Green Bay, Wisconsin, to Titletown to do a panel and a walkthrough of Titletown Tech, which is where our lead investor is based, or is our lead investor. And then there's an office space right in the Titletown district. And then we're doing a social right there as well. And so that's going to be great. And I'm working to plan out my other like side job, non-paid side job,
Hmm.
uh, is, is MDev. I'm taking on the one of the co-chair leads for uh, for MDev to really kind of grow that, and that's essentially, if like from a comp standpoint, it's like GDC,
Hmm.
um, but it's in Madison, and obviously GDC is a wonderful event that really brings together so many developers, but it's also not very accessible for most developers because it's so expensive. It's in San Francisco. San Francisco is not the safest place in the world these days.
Hmm.
Uh, and I love it. I lived there for 6 years, but it's a different place than when I lived there. And we just don't have many other options. And so what we're doing with MDev, which is November 7th and 8th,
Hmm.
is really trying to serve the industry in the Midwest, and and really the middle of the country, and even the East Coast. East Coast doesn't really have an event like
Yeah.
this, uh, and providing a place where people can come, learn from fellow developers, have a lot of different sessions. There's different tracks with game development, with marketing, publishing, and distribution, with uh, let's see what else is on their platform, and tooling, and then career development. And so there's a lot of areas that are being covered. And then with the amount of different companies that are in Madison, but then in these other places, Chicago, Indianapolis, Minneapolis, Ann Arbor, Cincinnati, Columbus, and others, it's a really excited to help build that. And we were able to double attendance year over year last year when I was the
Nice.
keynote. And so my hope is that we can continue that trend and give an alternative option
Hmm.
for others, or another option if you want to do both, that allows for more education, more community, more networking for game developers. So that's the other thing that I'm really focused on. And that's part of my role as a Wisconsin Games Alliance board member. And so it's exciting to see that grow, and the excitement kind of grow around that. And then, just continue to build the business, sign more games, release more games, and continue along with our mission.
Yeah. So when it comes to signing more games, do you reach out, or does your team reach out, or do you like go through Twitter feeds and look who needs a publisher and all that?
It's a whole mix of things, but majority. So we haven't even hired a biz dev person,
Mm.
and a lot find me or find the company, one way or another. And so we get almost a pitch a day.
Wow.
Um, and so all of it just inbound from different folks. And so it further sells my point of we need more publishers,
Hmm.
because there's far more than we could ever handle. There's far more than any publisher could handle, and a lot of these games are great. And so we need more publishers, and part of it will create some competition. Like there isn't much competition for most publishers out there right now, and there should be. Like as much as like I can benefit from that right now, like I still want to have fair deals because I think the the long-term relationship of a developer is far more important than the short-term like revenue you might get from one game.
Hmm.
Yeah, ultimately it's the second, third, fourth, fifth games. Like every game you go forward actually has a higher chance of success than the game before it.
Hmm.
And so if you think about the long term, you need to be focused on developing relationships with these developers, not just trying to exploit them in the moment. And so, we need some of that to be more forced and some of it to be, authentic with certain publishers coming in with their different philosophies on how they're approaching partnerships, because there's many different ways to do it. So, yeah, yeah, that's really it, with the volume that's coming in. To go back to your original
Yeah.
question, there's just so much, and they find a lot of it. A lot of it is they find me on LinkedIn. We will open up a funnel for like us going out and finding more in the future,
Okay.
but we have to get into this phase two uh, of kind of investment in games so that we are kind of expanding what we're doing and building like a long term
Hmm.
play. A lot of the current titles are kind of unique opportunities in the moment that we're able to come in and help support.
Yeah. So, for instance, like the Lullaby of Life was a Guadalajara, Mexico team.
Yep.
You're working
Yep.
with them, obviously just released, so probably too soon to see like the 4 or 5 year goal. But I'm sure you ask them, what is your overall goal?
Yep.
Are you making a sequel? Are you making another game? What's the plan here?
Yeah. Well, that's exactly. And they actually were pitching us a different game
Mm.
when we talked to them, and we saw this, and we are like, oh, this is really interesting. And it had been an Apple Arcade exclusive, and then that expired. It was nowhere. So we saw an opportunity to help them bring it to more places and kind of expand what they're doing and build our relationship so we can get to that next game and then get to what the future could hold as from a partnership perspective with them. So we really really love that studio. I see us partnering with them on so much, and to the point that they are actually even partnering with one of our other games we're working on as a kind of helping to support from a co-dev perspective.
Hmm.
Duck Paradox actually helping to support that studio because that is a single person studio that happens to be a guy from Guadalajara, Mexico, that lives in Germany and then is working with a sound lead that's in Indiana. And so, like, there's like this interesting combo or trifecta, I guess, not combo, between all of that, that we're able to help support another studio because One Simple Game is really great at co-dev. That's how they built their studio the last
Hmm.
20 years. So being able to find them additional work opportunities because we love what they do, we love how they do it. Well, we also work on kind of the future of what they want to do down the line as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. I mean, 6 games so far, many more on the way. Super excited to see what you've got going on, Ben. I know our time's running short. Is there anything? I have one more question if you got the time.
Yeah,
For
I got the time.
future game devs, up and comer developers or publishers that want to get into this, what would you want to say to them? What's the best way to get the foot in the door? How would you, you know, go about if you're in school going to where they are now to where you are now?
Network before you need something. Like build relationships not on your need,
Hmm.
but on what you can provide. And sometimes that providing is, frankly, with some executives and some folks in the industry, is the ego trip of being asked, like, hey, like, oh, I want to hear about your journey. I want to hear about whatever it is. that starts building of a bridge, and that starts them knowing a little bit more about you. And so, network that I always call it like the piggy bank philosophy of like put change in the piggy banking, and over time that collects,
Mm-hmm.
and when you need it, you suddenly have something. Whereas if you're not constantly putting in and giving away to others, when you need something, you're suddenly in the negative, and
Mm-hmm.
you might get something from somebody, but they're going to have some resentment probably towards you of like, or you're gonna owe, like they're going to feel like you owe them something, because ultimately we all have that like gut, that push and pull of like, and if you're constantly like be giving and helping and supporting and advocating and going to different events and just you're around it, you're not going to feel like you are just trying to take from somebody else. You're actually going to feel part of what is happening, and that's much easier to get in the door. And so, yeah, go network, go to industry events where they're available, go meet people that are doing these things. You just never know what's going to be that connection point.
Mm-hmm.
uh, so fun, so interesting looking at my career, how many times like somebody that hadn't like I was connected with, always had a good relationship with, would have talk every once in a while. It's not like you have to go super in depth all the time. No one,
Mm-hmm.
no one can do that.
Right.
But like just having that solid relationship has turned into, hey, you should talk to this person, or you should talk to like, and it just ends up being a different way of approaching it where it's just an exchange of good. Like we're all trying to help one another, and if you can turn it into that, it's much easier to get jobs, it's much easier to get your foot in the door, it's much easier just to build strong relationships. And guess what, sometimes it will turn into nothing, and that's okay. Sometimes it's just that you have a strong relationship with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
uh, my guess is it will get something at some point for somebody. It might be your friend, it might be your partner, it might be like, you just never know. But by giving and doing good, and trying to help others, it'll come back, I think,
Mm-hmm.
tenfold.
Yeah, I agree. People help people. Kindness motivates kindness. And it's just always trying. You I like what you said. Give without wanting anything in return. That's really
Mhm.
what it is. Um, I love what you're doing at Midwest. Really appreciate you taking the time to hang out with me and talk about Midwest games and your story, Ben. Um, where can people find you? Any closing remarks from you?
People can find me on mainly LinkedIn, but also Twitter, a little bit more on Hinge on Twitter, as everyone is. And that's just my name, Ben Kvalo, Kvalo. I'm the only one in the world, so I'm really easy to find. And yeah, you can find me in those places. And I post a lot on LinkedIn, and apologies ahead of time if you're going to follow me on that. But I like to think a lot of it is informative or advocating for something, and I try to pass it forward as well, with others, and helping to support what some other folks are doing on the platform. But yeah, that's where I'm at. And then I also advocate for Wisconsin. Come check out Wisconsin sometime. Check out Madison, check out Green Bay, check out Milwaukee. There's a lot of incredible things happening. Dungeons and Dragons was created in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
The largest music festival, Summerfest, is in Wisconsin. The most water parks in the world are in Wisconsin. So there's a lot of fun to be had in this state, and not everyone always knows about that. And then obviously the game development scene that we talked about is
Mm-hmm.
growing in big ways.
Yeah. Thank you for taking the time to chat
Of
about
course.
Midwest and everything you've got going on.